Hello, beautifuls. This is Aromie here, and welcome back to Seduce Me 2, where we figured out that, well, we already kind of knew Diana's past based on the other routes, but I guess we hear it from Sero's mouth this time.
What's done is done. We can't ever change the past, no matter how desperately we try. What matters now is preparing for the Demon Lord and the final battle.
James nodded. It was a sour note to end on, but Diana's words were the truth. We couldn't linger on pointing fingers and having doubts now. Diana ran a hand through her hair and looked around the room. Wait, we already read this. Great. Someone wanted me to train with the fairy girl. I don't really know how to get to her, so... Oh, wait. We can. Okay, that's easy. I chose Faye. Okay. Diana raised an eyebrow but nodded. Faye was a wild card, so who knew what they would teach me? Still, my curiosity was getting the better of me, and I knew it. I'd try it. Right. Here we go. I reported to a large grand hall. Apparently, it was strictly to be used for Seto and Diana, but since training me for defense became a priority, I was given the room along with my trainer of choice, Faye. I didn't know what made me choose Faye. Well, I know because a viewer wanted me to choose her. They were indeed a wild card choice. Who knew what I would learn from them? They were obviously a fairy, but what kind of abilities did fairies have in this world? I could tell that they were nothing like the fairies in fantasy fairy tales, so the idea of learning from them became a tantalizing curiosity within me. As I arrived, I saw Faye flutter about the room, wild at the space they were given to train me.
Whoa! This room is so huge! How the heck did we get this room? When did the castle even have this room? Holy crap!
I giggled and stepped in, watching as the fairy flew to and fro from one side of the room to the other in excitement. Hopefully they wouldn't be too distracted by the size of the room to train me. Hey, Faye. Faye at last turned to me with a large grin, and flew close to me, placing their hands behind their back.
Hiya! You ready to learn some cool tricks from a cool demon like me?
Hell yeah, let's go. I smiled and I had picked a good trainer. Nodding, I pressed my hands on my hips. Absolutely, I'm ready. Faye grinned before floating over to the far end of the room, cupping their hands together and calling out to me.
Come over here!
I tilted my head, confused a bit, but shrugged and ran forward, eventually stopping at Faye's side. They clapped in applause, which made me a bit more confused. But I bowed to them amused.
Alrighty! Now, race it to the other side!
Wait, what? Before I could question Faye, they reeled back and zipped across the room towards the far wall. I rushed behind, trying to catch up, but didn't make it in time to beat Faye from touching the wall.
I win!
So she's like a speedy type, I guess, because you didn't warn me this was going to be a race. Faye looked at me confused before rubbing their head.
But this is training! Aren't I supposed to teach you how to be fast and dodgy and stuff?
I suddenly realized what I had got myself into. Faye had no idea what they were doing. Whoa, who's that? A figure who was standing in the corner watching the whole event stepped out of the shadow, slightly surprising me as he walked up to Faye.
Boss, I think you should be teaching the human how to defend herself. Just saying.
Sounds like he has a New Jersey accent. Faye turned around and flailed their arms at the figure.
Terminus! Don't tell me what to do! I can do this!
Terminus let out a snort with an amused smirk, crossing his arm at his apparent boss and shrugged.
Alright, whatever you say. I was just making a suggestion.
Faye puffed out their cheeks at Terminus before turning back to me. I became concerned. Would I be able to learn anything from Faye other than racing? Get out of dodge, stay and try. No, stay and try. I took a moment to take a deep breath and let it out. Who knew what Faye had in store? Maybe they'd teach me how to grow wings or become small. Their abilities could be pretty useful, especially the wings. I mean, she's teaching you stamina, so... Faye pressed a finger to their chin before silently getting an idea.
I know! I can teach you a really cool attack!
I suddenly became excited and attacked. I knew the training was meant for my self-defense. But having an offensive attack would prove to be very useful in the war I was essentially about to jump into. Faye grinned at me before turning to the open space and holding their hands out, closing their eyes and focusing their energy. I watched as the green orb slowly appeared before their palms, growing in size until it became the size of a baseball. They opened their eyes and gripped it with both hands, looking at me with a grin.
This is called the thorn bush.
Thorn bush? They nodded ecstatically before arching their hands back behind their head and chuckling the orb forward into the space. As it impacted to the ground, the orb popped like a bubble and released a cloud of green gas that covered a large portion of the floor. The cats quickly began to materialize into a web of thorny branches, stretching out over the floor and stopping just before where Faye and I stood. The branches continued to sway in the air as if they were alive. Whoa! I was absolutely astonished. This seemed like a really cool trap, but was it effective? I turned my gaze to Faye to see them look to Eterminus with a smug expression.
Hey, Eterminus! Try and walk through it.
With a amused grin and a roll of his eyes, Eterminus summoned his spear and walked forward into the area where the bush had made claim. I watched in curiosity, wondering what the thorn bush would do. I gasped as the branches closest to Eterminus began to lash out and strike at him, only to be blocked and cut down by his spear. With a concentrated expression, Eterminus began to cut through the bush, driving it back slowly but surely. While I understood that he knew about how to deflect Faye's trap, it was an interesting spell nonetheless. If anything, it was able to slow down enemies and attack them as I went on, a good distraction. As Terminus reached the center, he rammed his spear into the spot where the bush sprouted from, causing the branches around him to wither and die, fading into the air like they were never there. Whoa, that was pretty cool. I had to admit it looked really cool even to the end. It was very effective and I was going to learn it. Go me! Faye turned and smiled at me, bobbing a bit in the air in excitement.
Isn't it? It's one of my favorite trap spells. What's even cooler is that if you throw it at a person, they'll be covered in thorns and won't be able to fight back.
That was a game changer. I stared at Faye shocked. It really could do stuff like that. Then again, there wasn't really a good way to test it because none of us wanted to be the receiving end of that spell, and there was no training dummies in the room. I had to take their word for it. Faye grinned before crossing their legs and sitting on the air, pondering.
What else to show you?
Eterminus looked over and shook his head, walking back to his corner.
Make the human try what you just did first before showing us something new.
All right.
Faye looked over at me and waved their hands out into the room, gesturing me to do what they did. It was mildly adorable to see them do that, but I shook my thoughts out and focused on trying to replicate what Faye did. I looked to my hands, trying to focus on forming the green orbs in my hands. I began to imagine it, hoping it would spark my energy to perform the spell, but I found that the imagination wouldn't work, or at least wasn't enough. I glared at the back of my hands, trying to figure it out. Faye floated beside me and looked at my hands as well, tapping their chin.
Maybe if you squint really hard or something.
Faye, I turned my head to Faye, not wanting to be a bad student but needing a teacher to actually teach me. Faye floated back and bit, placing their hands in front of them by their chest.
I'm sorry. I mean, it's like,
Like what?
Well, I mean, you're a human and I don't exactly know if you have magic and stuff, like,
Faye wiggled their arms beside them, flailing a bit, before flying around me and scratching their head.
Like, brute demons have, like, rage energy to battle, and then Diana has her ooh-la-la kind of sexual energy or whatever to power her powers. But for me, it just comes naturally, you know? I just think about it and poof, it happens. But I'm a demon, so it's supposed to happen.
I just like how she described all their energies. I nodded, understanding what they meant, but I pressed forward, knowing humans could perform magic if they wanted to. We had energy too, after all. Well, can you show it to me again? Or maybe do it with me or something? Faye tapped their chin, listening to me before nodding and turning to the side. They pointed their hands out and focused on their fingers, which caused me to turn and do the same. I stared as Faye took a breath and mimicked them perfectly. I was going to do this one way or another. I looked to my hands and tried to focus one more time. I tried to imagine my energy flowing to my hands and forming the green orb, hoping it would spur the action to happen. Come on. Finally, something in my mind clicked. I closed my eyes and focused on my breathing, feeling the air flow through my body. I began to mentally scour my body, taking note of the inhales and exhales I released before figuring it out. I concentrated on the air in my body, imagining it to be like the energy I imagined myself to have. Like that, I felt very faint waves pulse through my body, confirming that I indeed had energy to use and a lot of it. I smiled and looked to my hands again, knowing and feeling the energy within me, before committing to call it forward into a green orb. Obediently, my energy began to flow into my hands, making them blow lightly before forming an orb just in front of my palms. It began to pulse and grow in size, making Faye look over and gasp.
Holy crap, you're doing it! You're doing it!
I grinned from ear to ear as I continued to focus on the orb. Once it became the size of both of my hands, I grasped onto it and pulled it over my head before chucking it into the empty room. Just like Faye's orb, mine popped once it crashed onto the floor and formed a large string and lines of thorny branches, waving creepily in the air and releasing a threatening appearance. I couldn't have been prouder of myself. They zipped through the air happily, punching their fists into the air.
Yeah! You did it!
I couldn't help but jump a bit as well. It was tough, but I had managed to pull it off. I felt a slight tingle in my hand and arms from using energy, but I didn't mind. They finally floated over to me and grabbed my hands, shaking them in joy.
You're gonna have so much fun training!
I guess I don't have to ask if everything is okay in here.
Faye and I turned our heads to see Diana leaning against the door with a small smirk. I smiled a bit and nodded, looking to the magic I had performed that was still wriggling in the center of the room. Faye released my hands and flew over to Diana, grabbing the succubus hands and pulling her into the room.
Whoa!
Look! Isn't it so impressive? It's the second best spell I know and she mastered it!
Wait, what? I stared at Faye in shock. This was their second best spell. They really trusted me to learn it, and it was the second best? What was the first? What was the last? Diana observed the branch monster I had essentially summoned and nodded with a chuckle.
I told you, she's a powerhouse of energy. I'm not surprised that she could pull this off.
I felt a bit flattered that Diana believed in me, but Faye flew around Diana and flicked the succubus's hair, making Diana jump a bit and glare at the flying demon.
Yeah, but you didn't tell me that she was awesome!
Diana chuckled a bit before letting out a sigh with a shake of her head.
I'll leave you be then. Have fun, dears.
Faye was grinning from ear to ear as Diana turned on her heel and walked away. As soon as she left the room, Faye spun around me and lifted themselves higher into the air.
Alrighty, let's make you the master of the thorn bush.
I laughed and felt excitement rush through my veins. This was going to be fun. I spent the entire day focusing on how to make the spell happen quicker, faster, and come more naturally to me. I left exhausted but thrilled at what I was now able to do. I returned to my room that night wondering how things had come to this. My body was exhausted, but mine was running 100 miles an hour. I had to physically be near the demon lord while he died. How specific was this curse? As I sat on the bed, I ran my hands through my hair and over my face, attempting to ease the nerves beneath my skin. Despite it not working as well as I hoped, I found my mind organized my thoughts constructively. I was training for a reason after all. I was working to make sure I survived this war, and I was able to go home with James, the man I loved. However, just thinking about him brought back memories of Seduce screaming and Diana crying. Was it really James' fault that Diana's family was killed? All James wanted was freedom. As I thought of him, James entered the room and spotted me, a tired smile growing on his face. I smiled back, matching his exhaustion.
You look worn out.
So do you. James chuckled slightly and walked over, sitting beside me. I felt myself instinctively scoot closer to his body and lay my head on his shoulder. That simple move made my body almost sink into his. When did James ever feel this warm? James' arms wrapped around my waist and pulled me closer. As he placed a kiss on my head, I could only hum happily.
So, about sleeping tonight.
I looked up to James, wondering where the question came from. It was random and I didn't understand what he meant until I stretched back into my thoughts. The angels. James nodded. He was right. How was I supposed to sleep when angels were after me? They could reach into my dreams and remove my memories without me being able to fight back. At least not without Settle or Diana's help. It wasn't fair to depend on them, especially after remembering what Settle confessed this morning. James, however, gently turned me in his arms to face him. I looked up at him, wondering what he was up to. Just stay quiet. I waited for James to do whatever he needed to do. I trusted him, and he obviously wanted to do something to help me. James gently ran his thumb over the sides of my face, tracing over the edges of my eyes and cheekbones. I felt small wisps of energy dance over my nerves and closed my eyes gently, becoming lost in the sensation. And this is where we're going to stop for that. We're going to figure out what's going to happen to us when we go to sleep, because I think he put like some block spell to not get near my brain, because I put on my face, I'm assuming. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. Stay beautiful, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.